Hello everyone, this is Ashley Tucker from My Favorite Things. In today's video, I'm actually going to be making a birthday card for my son, who is turning 14 this month. I started out this card with a piece of slate gray cardstock, and I prepped that with a powder tool for embossing. Now there's two sentiments in this set that say happy. One of them is the outline and the other one is the solid letters. I grabbed the solid letter one and I'm going to stamp that 3 times down this piece of gray cardstock using Versamark ink. I used the measurement lines on the side of my MISTI tool to make sure that I have these words evenly spaced. So when I slid the paper up to stamp the second one, I made sure to note how far I slid it up, and then when I slid it up again for the third stamp, I made sure to slide it up the exact same amount as I did for the first time, so that those two words have the exact same amount of space in between them. Once I had those 3 words stamped, I used a clear embossing powder, and then I'm going to trim down the edges, and once I finish trimming, this piece ends up being 3 1/4 inches by 4 1/2 inches. Next, I wanted to give this a little bit of a gradient look, so I grabbed my Black Soot Distress Oxide ink and one of my blender brushes, and I'm just going to blend that up from the bottom of the page to the top, where it slowly fades out into the gray at the top. So I'm making sure to use very little pressure once I get to the middle and just kind of blend it to nothing. I set the background aside and I picked out some different strips of cardstock that I thought would look really nice together. My son's favorite color is orange, so I knew that I definitely wanted to incorporate some of that color in this card, and I'm going to be doing that with these candles. This die set is called Wish Big, and it makes birthday candles. Now you can cut the pieces of the die set apart from each other so that they're separate, but for this one I decided to just keep them all together. As you can see, not all of the candles are orange. I wanted a little bit of variety, so I ended up using a dark orange, a light orange, yellow, green, and a turquoisey blue. Right here, I wanted to show you a little trick. A lot of times when you're die cutting, you will see that the edges are a little bit rough, and they'll have kind of these little strands of paper that are holding on to them. The way that I fix this is I take my Tombow Mono sand eraser, and I use the sand side of it and I run that along the edges. And this just smooths them out and takes off any of those unwanted little strands of paper. And here you can see the difference. If you looked at it at the beginning, it looks a lot better. Next, I'm going to glue the wicks of the candle onto the back of the top of each of them using just a little dab of liquid adhesive. Alright, so I made an A2 size card base and I adhered a piece of black cardstock to the front of it, and then I popped up my background with foam tape in the center of that. Using a T-square ruler, I measured in exactly the same amount from each of the 2 sides of the gray cardstock, and I made a little mark, and this is where I'm going to be placing the flames on the candles that are on the outside edges of the card. And this is just so that I can get a nice even spacing. Once I had the 2 flames for the candles on the sides placed, I just eyeballed the rest of the flames, starting with the middle one. It's a lot easier for me to center things than it is for me to judge the placement on the edges, which is why I measured that. And I don't really mind too much if it's not totally perfect. That's not going to bother me too much, but I did want those outside candles to be a little bit more precise. Now that I had all of those flames in place, it was very easy to place all of the candles and line them up. All I had to do was put them right underneath all of the flames and make sure that the bottoms were more or less on the same level and that the lines were straight. I should mention that I did use a tiny piece of foam tape to adhere all of those flames, and I also do have a thin strip of foam tape behind all of these candles. For the sentiments on this card, I am going to be using 2 different stamps. One of them is the cursive birthday stamp from the Happy Happy Birthday stamp set. The other one is a stamp that says Happy Happy Happy, and it's from the Itty Bitty Birthday stamp set. When I was making this card, I wasn't sure if I wanted my sentiments to be embossed on black cardstock or stamped with black on white cardstock, so I ended up doing both so that I could look at them and decide. And the thing that I ended up deciding on in the end was to mix it up and do one of each. For the smaller sentiment, I did just cut that out using my trimmer, but for the larger sentiment that says birthday, I used some scissors and I did fussy cut around those letters. I adhered these down using liquid adhesive, and then for the parts that hung off of the side of the candles, I just snuck a little tiny piece of foam tape under there. For the little details on this card, the first thing that I did is I used a white gel pen to add a faux stitching line around the outside edge of the gray cardstock, and then I used some enamel dot stickers to decorate the background a little bit, and then this card was all done. Thank you so much for watching today. I hope you really enjoyed today's card design and that it gave you some ideas for your own cards. I hope you have an absolutely wonderful day today, and I'll see you next time.